Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy week 3 of January. It's good to chat with everybody. We're going to go over what these kids are learning in classes this week, where we're at on January projects, and a little bit of housekeeping. And I'll let you go. Should be a quick one today. I did bring some drawing examples with, but I didn't bring any multimedia stuff. I do have some fun pictures in the slideshow, though. So first things first, let's just go over the calendar for the week. I want to make sure everybody knows today is Martin Luther King Day and most of our schools are out. However, we still have drawing classes and we still have multimedia classes today, but we do not have any preschool classes today. So if you normally come to toddler art and play, or you normally come to our preschool fundamentals art class that's in Platte Woods on Mondays, today you do not have class. So please don't come to the studio. The doors will be locked. But if you come to homeschool class today, if you come to homeschool drawing class today, if you come to Drawing 101, Drawing 102, Drawing 103 classes today, you have class. If you come to K-3s, you come to 4th, 5ths, you come to 6th, 7th, or 8th, 12ths, all those multimedia classes still have class today. The only ones that don't are the preschool classes this morning in Platte Woods. Okay, so everybody else has class today. And then the rest of the week is normal. Now, when we get to next week, we're going to talk about some off days because all of our Tuesday, Thursday, Friday kids will have days off. If you're in a preschool class and if you're in a creative exploration class, you will also have some days off next week. But this week, the only weird day is today. Okay? All right, so let's see. I should check my notes. Yeah, that's it. Let's go through here. All right, preschool fundamentals. So just a reminder, if you're in Monday's class at Platte Woods, you don't have class. But it is our light and dark month where we're looking at contrast. We read Freight Train last week. It was a very paintery week. Lots of paint. We used sponges and stamped long trains, just like the ones in our book. We also got to paint on grid paper as our warm-up. So lots of paint happened last week. If you saw, there was a reel posted to both Instagram and Facebook that had some adorable kids who were painting in our studio with some of our great colors. We very much enjoyed that. In this class coming up, so Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday classes this week in preschool, we're going to be reading Flashlight by Lizzie Boyd, which is a book that has no words. It's all illustrations. We will read it by flashlight. We will get to play with flashlights, and we're going to do some shadow tracing. Okay. Monday's class will do flashlight next week. Okay. All right. So for our K-3 classes, moving on to multimedia, we are working on these giant abstract paintings. So these are poster-sized paintings with acrylic paint because it's acrylic paint month. You can see we got our backgrounds painted in week 1, and week 2 we added shapes. So we learned what an organic shape was and what a geometric shape was. We brainstormed different shapes, and then we selected our color palette for our second layer, and we painted on top. Okay, so all choices are the artist. The only restriction that we have put on the kids is that we don't cross the color wheel on the same day of class. So if you choose red as your first color today, then we don't also go in with green on the same day. We can do green the next week, but we don't cross the color wheel. That just keeps our colors from getting too muddy. It makes it easier on washing brushes and stuff. So we stay in the same color family with those analogous colors, so we don't end up with brown. But all choices other than that are artists, and so here's one of our artists painting a very geometric shape on his artwork here. I should tell you what we're doing. Sorry, drink more coffee, Allison. This was last week. You ready to hear what's going this week? So this week we will we'll make our brushes just a little bit smaller. We'll learn a little bit about textures and about marks. So this could be a physical texture, like where you actually run your hands over something, and it feels different, right? So you have raised a textural element in your artwork, or it can be a visual texture, so that it can be something that just represents texture, like maybe small little hash marks, right, that are clustered together gives us a visual texture. So we'll learn a little bit about that. We're going to look at some examples of texture. We're going to look at some interesting mark making tools that we have in the studio, like bubble wrap, like cars, right, that leave different marks than what a brush would. And we'll explore those tools in adding texture and marks. So think lines and texture to our artwork. So that'll be the next layer. And then in our last week, we'll add our finishing layer. Okay, 4th and 5th in homeschool are working on these pet and animal portraits. In our first week, we, of course, looked at art examples. We picked out our reference image. We got our backgrounds painted. In our second week, you can see we're starting to block in the main color of our animal. So if our animal is mostly light brown, then that's the color we put down. And we didn't worry about details, which is really hard because it's so easy to get lost into like, what does that eye look like? And we want to start right there with the fur and the eyes and kind of the layer that's closest to us in the picture. And instead we need to look deeper into the image and see that layer that is furthest, that first layer. So what's the base coat that has to go down? And that's what we did in our first week. The tricky part about this is everybody's image is different. And so our instructors are talking to each kiddo about their picture and deciding what their next step is. And everybody's next step is different because all their pictures are different. So we've got kids who've done this project before and they've got it and they're on it and they're like, they don't need any help and they know what they're doing. And then we have kiddos who this is their first time doing something like this. And so maybe they need a little bit more hand holding, and that's a-okay. So we've got our first layer down. This is what we call blocking in. This is where we're putting in rough shapes and main colors. It's almost like you were to take your reference image and look at it and then squint so that everything you saw was really blurry. That's what we're painting. We're painting just the bare bones, like just the basics. From there, on top of that, we will layer in the highlights that we see, the shadows that we see, all of the texture and all of the details. And so in the next 2 weeks, so that's this week and next week, those are the steps. Once we've got it all blocked in, we're looking for first, where are your shadows? How do we create those shadows? Whether we use our base color and we add black to it, which is something that we call a shade, whether we add our base color and we add the complementary color to it, and we use that as our shadow color. We also look at highlights and what are our highlights. It could be just taking that base color and adding white, which is called a tint, or it could be actually a highlight that has color to it. So some of our highlights might be super warm, and so we add yellow to them. Some of them could be a cool highlight, and so we're going to add an icy blue to it. So there can be color inside our highlights. It doesn't just need to be the lighter color of the base. So we'll talk a little bit about color theory, and then we'll dig into different brush strokes for representing fur. We'll learn, for our kids who are ready for it, we'll learn a dry brushing technique where the paint underneath is completely dry. And then you take your brush, also completely dry. You put a very little paint on it, and then you use that as a texturing tool called dry brushing to add depth onto our picture. So we'll do that, and we'll also, of course, get into drawing all those great eyes and all the detail work. So lots to come here, and everybody's in different stages. The goal, though, by the end of the third class, which is this week, is that we've got our whole animal covered in paint. Got at least one layer down. We're starting to see, so it doesn't look flat, we're starting to see shadows and highlights, right? So if you look at my neck, I've got a shadow that goes underneath my neck, right? I have a shadow on this side of my face, right? That's what makes my face look round. I have a highlight right here, right? That's what makes my face look round. So we'll look at our pictures. We'll start to get shadows and highlights on there, and we're going to start to get some texture marks, and then we'll finish in our last week. Okay. For our 6th, 7th, and our 8th through 12th grade artists, we're making these altered paintings. So they have chosen their picture. They have glued it down to a canvas panel. We have decided what we're going to cover up completely and omit, what we're going to save, and what we're going to alter. And we're using different tools to do that. We're using, of course, brushes and acrylic paints, but they also use acrylic paint pens. And so we've got Posca brand acrylic paint pens for them to use in adding super detailed work or patterning in their picture. So kind of a funky modern art form that we're doing in this class. For our creative explorations kids, so switching gears, this week is your last week of January classes. So this is the last time we will see these stations, and then next time you come back, we'll have you the February stations. This is from the Liberty Studio and one of our favorite stations this last week was the water place. We had it right in the middle and it glows under the black light, so it's just so cool. That's pulled from our preschool curriculum where they're experiencing stations to explore light and dark and contrast. And so, I mean, why not make things glow, right? So we've got some fun stuff happening here. The other favorite has been the paper snowflakes in Liberty. We've really enjoyed that. And then, let's see, I asked Jackie what their favorite was out at Flatwoods, and she said that they've really enjoyed making mini acrylic paintings. So she said that the media focus, which is our acrylic paints, has been a favorite out there in creative explorations classes in Flatwoods. So last chance to do that is this week, and then in February we'll move on to printmaking. Drawing 101, no pictures for Drawing 101, although really fun video was posted Wednesday night to our Instagram stories. Hopefully you got to see it. So 101 did a still life last week. Still life is when we put a collection of inanimate objects in front of us and we use our powers of observations to draw what we see. So the still life last week was a collection of winter gear that we brought in, boots, scarves, hats, ski goggles, and set it up into an arrangement. The kids pick where they're going to sit, and then we can either draw the entire arrangement, or we can use a viewfinder and a little window. That's when you see an artist doing this, right? They're using a viewfinder. We actually have paper viewfinders with an acrylic, not acrylic, but like a transparency layer in it, so it looks just like a window. We have those so the kids, if they want to help frame out their picture, they can. And then you draw what you see. So I wanted to show you a couple examples of what we have going on. So you can see, of course, some of it's green, so you can just see through it. But it was all on a bench. This is from Wednesday night's class, so it was all laid out on a bench for them to look at. We have a pole in our classroom, so a big silver pole that keeps the roof up. And then we also have these orange ornaments that hang from the ceiling. So we drew a little bit of the environment and then also the objects that are on the bench. Here's another great example. We used oil pastels to do all of our drawing. Here's an example from a different night. So this still life looks different, right? Because it was set up differently. But we have objects that are on the table. You can see the scarf. This artist started with pencil. We can still see a lot of her pencil, his or her pencil, through the drawing. And then we've got some color starting to go in on that. But I love all of the texture lines when you're looking at winter gear, right? We get a lot of things that have like a woven texture. So figuring out how we represent that in drawing is always a challenge. So those were our still life drawings. In our third week of classes, we're going to change from drawing from life to drawing from photograph. And so we've got pictures, a collection of winter landscapes that have some great colors in them, actually, because they are like sunsets and sunrises, lots of pinks, cotton candy blues, a little bit of golden yellows that kind of come through. So we'll look at those winter landscapes, so snowy landscapes, and we're going to draw those in chalk pastel. In our 102 class, this is our figure drawing month, and so the kids are studying kind of human body and human form and drawing that. And last week was our life drawing lesson. So we drew from life, from observation, and our kids got to take turns being the model. We got out the dress-up clothes so that they could have props, and then their challenge is to hold that position for a minute or two. It's a quick drawing. You can see this artist here is drawing, quickly to just get the figure down. This is an exercise called gesture drawing. Typically, it's done large scale, but you can also do it small. But the goal is to get the main lines down as fast as possible, and it's a great way to work your eye and your hand together, and also just really establish the kind of the proportions of the figure. And so repetition over and over and over again. And the dress-up clothes just make it fun. So that was our week 2 lesson. In week 3, we switched. So instead of drawing from life and our people, we're actually going to get out our drawing mannequins. Got one over there. I can't reach it though. But you know what a mannequin is, right? So it's about tabletop, about this high. It's a wooden mannequin, what bends at the joints, just like a person does. We'll put those into some sort of pose, and the kids will draw the mannequin and then put, clothes and hair and all that fun stuff on them. And just kind of learning how to use that tool. So in our Drawing 103 classes, we are working on, oh wait, I gotta go back because I forgot about illustrative. I get so excited about figure drawing. that was one of my focuses in college was life drawing. So it's my favorite. So our 102 illustrative kiddos are working on world building. Last in December, we were in an interior room and we built an interior space from our imagination using the rules of linear perspective. Now we are outside in a world and we are building our world from our imagination using linear perspective if we have lines or atmospheric perspective if we don't. We started really zoomed out and then we are slowly zooming in. So I wanted to show you some of the worlds that our kids are building. Now we're not on the street yet. So like when I say on the street, that doesn't mean there isn't a street. That doesn't mean there is a street. It just means that like, like if you were to stand on a street and see the world, we're not quite in that viewpoint yet. We're a little bit still zoomed out. So we've got some crazy things happening and stuff. Can't believe that. Not today yet. This one has a lot of green on it. That's what's down here. You just can't tell, but good stuff. All right. So in our third week of classes, that's when we get to the streetscape. When we get to like, we are standing here and all the proportions, it looks like we're standing with our character. And so the pictures should have an original character in them and it should be to their scale. Oh, we're actually standing in the world. In our 103 classes, I brought some examples of illustrative. Our realistic kids are doing a modern still life and they are not loving me. At least that's the feedback I got in the staff meeting, which last year they loved this lesson, but I guess this crew does not love alcohol markers. So noted. But they're working with alcohol markers to make this highly saturated modern still life. So I didn't bring any examples, but I did bring ones of illustrative. So our illustrative kids have been looking at the art of Dr. Seuss and trying to create their own world that has an animal in it and is original animal and in the style of Dr. Seuss. So I wanted to show you a couple things. Most of them are through the inking phase and we'll move on to coloring or are really close to being done with inking. We maybe need to erase some pencil lines, but I think most of the inking is done. I think they did a really nice job with that line work that kind of replicates what Dr. Seuss did, right? We've got kind of a feathery line work. I get kind of a whimsical design. This one does a nice job of some of that patterning. So in Dr. Seuss's work, we see kind of this psychedelic patterning that happens in black and white, but also in color. So I think we'll see some of that once these guys get color in, kind of what their repetition is, but lots of good stuff happening in our Dr. Seuss lesson. So in our housekeeping stuff, just a reminder, our Martin Luther King Day schedule today is that there's no preschool classes, no toddler art and play classes. Everything else meets. So all the homeschool classes, all the drawing classes, all the multimedia classes. Okay, so that's what's happening today. Summer programming gets revealed to the website tomorrow. So if you've been waiting to see what's coming this summer, that'll be up by 9 a.m. tomorrow. There is no registration that happens. So there's really no urgency. I mean, we're excited to show it to you, but there's really no urgency. It's not like you need to get on there at 9 a.m. and get to going or anything like that. We got lots of time. Registration doesn't start till March, but this is a chance for you to look at it and ask questions, kind of make your plans, check with friends, all that fun stuff, okay? And then this is just a note here on housekeeping that we have a website, like a web page, and we have a website. Of course we have a website. On the website, there is a web page. If you go to the bottom footer, it's anchored there, so you can always find it, called Resources for Current Students. And on that page is where you'll find how to get your schedule, how to schedule a makeup, what our winter weather policy is, contact information, all that stuff. So if you ever are like, I can never remember where the makeup link is, just go to any Orange Easel webpage and scroll to the bottom and you'll find this link. Okay. All right. That's it, you guys. That's all I have for you. So I hope you have a wonderful third week of January, and I will see you in the studio.